FromBlack is the newest horror film that is now streaming on the Shudder streaming service, but the biggest question of them all is this film worth your time? Well, stick around and let's talk about it. A recovering drug addict, desperate for closure and saddled by crushing guilt after the disappearance of her young son, is presented with a bizarre offer to learn the truth about what happened and set things right if she is willing to pay a terrifying price. The film stars Annacamp, John Ailes, Jennifer Lafleur, Travis Hammer, Richie Montgomery, Eduardo Camparino, and many others, and was directed by Thomas Marchese. FromBlack, I didn't know anything about this film going into it. I went ahead and checked this film out on Shudder, and the biggest thing that I can say about this film is Annacamp. I know her from Pitch Perfect, and she's been in a few other films as well. It was really cool seeing her in a very serious role. She plays this drug addict, her son went missing, and the film, it starts out with a very terrorizing event that had unfolded, and you have Annacamp's character actually being arrested, and she is at the police station. And when she's at the police station, she is basically explaining how she got into this situation to the sheriff, and that's really where most of this film really builds on. Some of the film, it actually shows her in this jail, and then it actually goes back in time. So you have this woman that was with somebody that was a drug addict as well, and the son goes missing, and then we learn about her toxic relationship with that said character. She is in this group that is a support group for a lot of people that have lost children and lost their loved ones, and she meets this guy, and this guy says to her, "Hey, look, I will go ahead and make you a proposition. I can actually bring your son back." She's thinking to herself, well, this sounds like a really good proposition. I will go ahead and take up that offer. So the film, it really relies mainly on these two characters, a little bit of the sheriff, and then a little bit of the ex-boyfriend. And that's really the big meat and potatoes of this film. About the first, I would say, 45 to 50 minutes of this film, it doesn't really have anything really horror-like really happening in the film, but it really builds on that throughout the film. One thing that I will say positive about this film, and the first thing that I even noticed within like the first 10 minutes of this film, is the way this film was shot. It was shot very well. The scenery and the camera work, I thought it was done very well. Whoever did the score for this film, really a round of applause should be given for them, because it actually builds a lot of suspense in this film, and the fact that this film is a lot slower, it really does help the film actually chug along, because even though this film, the pacing and the way that the film is kind of slow and building up a little bit, I think the score really helped chug it along, because it really does build up those intensified moments. And certain moments are like, oh man, it's getting really suspenseful. Something bad really is going to happen. And this film, it dabbles into the devil. It dabbles into paranormal situations. It dabbles into spiritual connections. And I did like that they have that. And of course, there isn't really nothing, I would say, new about any of those kind of genres. A lot of that stuff you kind of know. There's a lot of flashbacks and a lot of building to the actual story. And of course, there's some backstory to certain characters as well. And I think overall the characters, they're developed really well, mainly because you don't have that many characters on screen, so they better be developed. However, I do think in certain aspects of this film, a lot of thought was really put into the twist of the film. And I think because a lot of times they're trying to build to this twist and really trying to reveal this twist towards the end and make you kind of go, oh wow, I didn't expect that. I think the film, it kind of holds back on certain character development and certain scenes to get to that twist. So it feels a little bit long in between, I would say, the second to third act getting into that twist. But I think once that twist is actually revealed, it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's really neat. I really like that. But I think getting to that point, it's a little bit meandering to get to that point, unfortunately. But I think certain things in this film, it definitely feels very scary. And if you're really into spiritual kind of things, you definitely will probably really like this film. And of course, There's certain things where you have somebody like floating in the air or possession or different spiritual kind of things. So you know that kind of aspect of the film, and you know that you've seen that and the kind of tropes that you see in a horror film. But I think overall the way that this film is actually done and the way that the suspensefulness of the music, I think overall it's at least an okay film. I just don't think it's anything that's too groundbreaking, or you're not going to go and come from this film and go, wow, you know, I've never seen that in a horror film before. Annacamp's performance here I thought was absolutely phenomenal. I think she really does actually carry this film from beginning to end, and of course in between flashbacks and actual present time. I like that she's in a more serious role here and not so much a comedy or really just kind of goofing around. It's great to see her really grounded and really dedicated to a role. There is one scene in this film that I thought was really cool, and I'm not going to say actually what happens, but I thought it was really disturbing, and it's actually in the trailer, so I will say don't watch the trailer before actually watching this film. It does give away a lot of the plot and a lot of the actual, I would say, horror parts of this film. So if you can avoid watching the trailer, don't watch it, because it definitely will give away a lot of certain plot points about this film. I found the sets and the setting itself to be very much well presented, especially in the beginning of the film where we know that this is in a more so rural kind of area, so they set that up very well. And especially like when we go to the actual trailer and we show that it's a very messy area and where annacamp's character used to live, so you can tell that she was obviously not living a very good life, obviously doing drugs. And also how they actually have her makeup. She's actually washed out in her makeup, so she's very pale and she's obviously very tired, very stressed out. So when she gets this opportunity presented to her by this guy to actually bring her son back, of course she's going to jump at that, but of course she's going to be very hesitant at that. And I have seen complaints where people have said, well, she kind of believed him and just went ahead and went for it, but he didn't really have the proof that he brought his actual child back. So I understand where people say that, but I also think there is one scene where he presents himself to actually know what he's doing, so that really makes her believe that he really can bring back her son. The woman's desperation, obviously, to have her son back, and the flashbacks that show that tragic occurrence to what actually happened to her son, you can tell that that desperation is just really weighing down on her character as a whole. The special effects in this film I found to be half and half. I like some of them and others I didn't really like. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of always having full CGI all the time, but this film obviously it has CGI, and I don't think the CGI is really bad, but there are points where I was kind of like on the CGI, but I don't think it's very bad or unwatchable or anything like that. As far as how this film actually wraps up and the actual twist that is actually involved, I actually like the twist. I did like how they actually wrapped the film up, and I liked how they actually threw in this twist to really think that, well, maybe that may happen, maybe it may not happen. But of course, I think the main thing that's really going to divide audiences with this film is the pacing itself, the fact that it's kind of slow, and of course it's not told in a linear actual path, going back and forth between past and present. That may bug people a little bit as well. As far as the runtime, it's a little long. They could have maybe shaved off maybe 10 minutes or so, but I think 100 minutes, it's not overly too long. As far as the score for this film, I would give it a 3 out of 5. Let me know in the comments, have you checked out this film? If you haven't checked out this film, is this something that you're interested in checking out? Thank you guys for watching this review, and I will see you guys on my next review.